Welcome to guitar players that are looking for a real challenge or at least want to see how a couple of amazing players tackle the same challenge. I'm not a huge fan of shred collabs because yeah, it's fun to see 15 to 20 minutes of some amazing players play over the same four chords and do it, and these videos get a lot of clicks, but the thing is, what do we as guitar players get out of them? We don't learn anything from them. We learn about a couple of new players, which are amazing, but it's all about let's play fast and fast and fast. And everyone in their own style, and that's great. It's an exhibition. But I'm not a huge fan. Also because I never get invited to those, because I can't play like that. So I'm a little bit bitter. But in 2004 or 5 or something, I did an album with a song called Just One More on it. And there's a full rhythm section, guitar rhythm lesson for that song, which is actually extremely simple to play. So if you want to play a really complicated song in no time, watch my Just One More rhythm lesson. But there is a synth line in that song, which I doubled. Back in that, on the original recording, I'm pretty sure I only doubled a couple of notes, so it sounded like I was actually playing the whole thing. I didn't. In 2017, I redid the whole song for a demo of a John Petrucci guitar from Music Man, and I remember practicing that unison synth line for 2 days to nail it, and when I recorded it, I was like, finally, god damn it, I did it. Now, for the Driftwood demo, I did the same thing again. In 2.5 days, I was sitting there, and I'm like, is this fingering the best way to do it? And I couldn't see any other way around it. Whatever I did just didn't feel right. But what I did was complicated to do. I'm going to show you the solo section as I recorded it for the Driftwood demo. Here it is. Yeah, interestingly, the shreddy solo that comes after that section looks a lot more complicated. But that's all guitar-y stuff. That's stuff we play so easily. I mean, it's just stuff that comes out of the fingers. That synth line doesn't. Let's listen to the synth line isolated one more time. It's not a guitar thing. And that's why I thought it's really interesting to feed this to a couple of top players, because for all of us, we can't use our normal approach to guitar because it's not a guitar line. If I'm great at playing, bluesy stuff in pentatonic positions, that doesn't help me. If I'm great at legato stuff, well, can help me a little bit, but it's all over different strings. Legato doesn't really help me there. If I'm great at 3-note per string alternate picking, well, this isn't adjacent strings. So I wanted to see how some top players approach that line. And it spiraled out of control, and I have a lot of players working on this. So some of them are still working on their version as I'm making this video. But in this video, we're going to do 2 things. I will teach you the line, and then we're going to see how 3 of them came back to me with their version of it. And it's interesting, so far, not a single one of the submissions I got is the same. They all use their strength to get around their weaknesses to play that line. It's super interesting, and hopefully you're going to enjoy this series to see how we do this shred collab, because it's technically that. Everyone plays the same thing, but then also teaches you why they play it the way they play it. You're only going to get the most out of this if you at least spend 20 minutes with it yourself. Don't look at players doing what they do and explaining it if you haven't experienced it yourself. I don't expect you to play it fluidly. I don't expect you to play it at all. I don't expect you to play it on time, at speed. Con le speed. I don't know. Le speed. La vitesse. I don't know. The French. But get it in your fingers and at least see what it's about. So I'm going to teach it. You stop the video, download the PDF or stop the video with the PDF on screen, practice it a bit, and then come back and look at some mind-blowing players. Today, we have my buddy Nico Schliemann, amazing session player who's very, very good. Then we have Sam Bell. Oh my God, Sam can play. Teacher at Waterbear in England. And then we have my buddy Sammy Boller, whose version is so absolutely messed up that I have no idea how he does that with his right hand, but we're going to get into that. It's just ridiculous. And he plays it insanely good. So, we're going to look at the whole thing right there. Okay, you're going to say 7/8, 7/8, 7/8, 9/8, complicated. No, it's not, because it's all 16th notes. You don't care. Okay, you don't have to hit any accents. You just have to get through it. It's all just continuous, so it doesn't really matter. And you're going to say, wow, that's a lot of notes. But if you actually look at measure 1, 2, and 3, they're the same measures except the last 3 notes. And actually, if you look at it, look at the third note from the end. In the first one, it's a 13, fret 13, which is a C. Then it's an E, and then it's a G. So that's the only note that changes, but trust me, that's a crucial part. And then the last measure is just complete mayhem. So let's go into the next graphic, and that actually focuses on one measure only. And when you can play that, you have the basics down. So I'm playing this all in one position. And either you do string skipping, like a motherfucker, or you're changing positions. There's always something in this damn lick that makes you make a compromise. So I'm going to teach it to you this way. I'm, by the way, right now using the AMPETE from Houston Kettner. That's the AMPETE Classic. I'm on the clean channel. And when I go here, that's the second channel. And that's DI, can you believe it? With the Chase Bliss reverb. So, I'm putting my pinky here. I don't have any fingers there, I'm sorry, I forgot that. But I make sure that most of the taps I'm going to give you have fingers. Yes, you can actually get taps from all the musicians, and you can really hone in on what they're doing. So, pinky on that D, G, D, D. So we're playing that octave. If you want to do this, go right ahead. That's going to be your funeral. Some musicians have started it this way. So, and I'm actually doing all alternate picking. Okay, you're going to see Sammy Boller later start with an upstroke. That way he's on the outside. I do alternate picking all the way, so I'm on the inside of the strings. Then, I'm rolling over with my index finger onto 12. And that rolling is obviously a difficulty. Some people try to do that, others don't. Someone did it here. I actually have a version where I'm doing this here. That way, you don't have to roll over, but then you have other problems. So, roll with the index finger, and back there. And then you're going to do that again. So it's framed by that octave. So you're doing... And then all slowly. Again. If you look at my right hand, that's actually all just alternate picked, super simple. I'm saying simple, but of course you have to do the string skipping. So get that in your fingers first. Then we're gonna do this. Now I'm doing that with 3, 4, 3. And some of you that don't have their pinky under control might do different versions. So the whole thing so far, you see I'm really barring those 2 strings. And that's the same thing, sorry, that's the same thing on all 3 first measures. So get that happening. I think Sammy Boller did. And then, even though that's his last note, he jumps here. Because he said, I like D minor pentatonic. So yeah, he does that. Okay, so and now we add the ending, which the first one is A, C, octave. Or here. Okay, you see some players playing it here. You see some players playing it here. What I'm doing to stay in the same position is C, pinky, and C, which is ridiculous and has its own problem. The main problem being a string skip over 3 strings. And also getting down here with your pinky. So I'm playing that again, the whole thing. Okay, and the next measure, same thing, but that first C is a high E, so it'll look like this. So I'm doing high E with an upstroke, because I'm doing alternate picking. That low C, 5 strings lower, with a downstroke, and then an upstroke on that C. Of course, there are different ways to do this, right here. Or, as Nico does here. From this shape. Easier, but then you have to get back to it. So that's this. Okay, and the next one is, that really messes it up, because we go down, so 14, 15, 14, and then 12, and then the C, and the C. So I'll play all 3 for you. So far you can see I'm staying in one position. That's my big advantage. My disadvantage is the frickin' string skipping. And my general inability to not play well. Last measure is a bitch. We take this whole thing and we go up. And for that I'm doing the only position change I'm doing. So I'm doing 13 and the octave here. But instead of doing the last octave, instead of doing that octave at the end, you're doing... I'm doing that with 1 and 2. So interesting to see how everyone tackles the same thing. Okay, then I move back into my 12th position. And that's the thing that messes me up. So I'm doing 12 on the G string, so the G. And then you can see the 15, 15, 14 there. Are you sweeping those? Or are you doing them alternate picking? If I do everything alternate picked, it makes sense to do it alternate picking. So we're doing... Now, back up to that high E with your index finger. Then, onto the D string, 14, 15, 13, 12. Roll over to that E. Slowly. And that's where your next downbeat is. A little bit faster. Yeah, it's that string skipping that messes you up. And everything else. See, these three. Problem for me. Damn it! Okay, I'll play the whole thing for you. Some notes that weren't even there, and if I now try to play it at speed with the recording, yeah, that's not gonna happen. I'll try it, and I'll make a fool of myself. But that's okay. It was pretty good in the beginning there for not having played that for a couple of weeks. So, take the time and look at the line. He rhymed. Pause the video. Even there's another version, which I think I threw in there. Let's see, is there another graphic?
Yes.
Okay, throw that in there, please. Here's a whole other version that I worked out with fingerings in the little circles, which is, I don't know. I think... Then you have this thing going on. Whatever. There's a whole other version from me. So, take 20 minutes, look at it, and then come back to the video and watch my buddies do completely different versions. And your mind's gonna be blown on how everyone attacks it differently. So, pause it now, come back. I can even sit here 10 minutes if you want to. I could just sit here and pause it for you. Come on, get to it. Play it faster. Okay, hey, you're back. Throw that away, Leslie. We're gonna start with my friend Nico Schliemann, who was the first to give me a different look on it, different position change that I didn't even consider. And He's a very good player, but even he had a little bit of problem wrapping his head around it and getting the alternate picking happening. So here's his version and lesson.
Henning approached me and a few other players with a complex line in a progressive metal context, and it's the usual kind of type of line that keyboard players come up with or that they program, and we as guitar players should double that stuff. And as the nature of it is, stuff like that is kind of hard to play. So I've made a little practice playback for me with just a click track and the synth line, so I can just play along to it and double it. I'll try to play it without mistakes, and then I'll try to break it down. So here's the line first. That was almost there. So this line has absolutely everything we guitar players hate, or at least I hate to do, which is string skipping with alternate picking, kind of finger rolls on two strings on the same fret, which I try to avoid as good as I can because it's not one of my strengths. And it's a string of constant 16th notes going on forever, and it's all alternate picked, which is also not my very strength. So here's what I came up with. The lick is divided in 3 parts or 4 parts. It's 3 versions of a 7/8 lick, and then it's a turnaround lick, which brings you back to the beginning. And the first measure of 7/8 goes like this. So there we have the first string skipping part here. Right followed after a finger roll. This is repeated with 2 other notes in the middle. Like this. And then there's a little position shift. And I do that so I just have to skip 2 strings and not 4. And the second phrase I start with the 3rd finger. And it's identical to the first phrase up till here. And then it changes a little bit. Instead of the first one was C, C, C. And the second one is E, C, C. Which is almost the same fingering, but it's just the first note is on the B string instead of the G string. And the 3rd phrase ends differently. I do a position shift here. And play the C octave down here at the 10th fret so I can reach to the high F here. Let me do the last one slowly again. And that would be the first note of the next phrase. So maybe this is helpful. This is how I try to go about stuff like that. And before I was able to play it at speed or almost able to play it fluidly. I had to learn it by heart, so there was no way of looking at the tabs or at the notation. I tried to come up with some hit points for my hand, so I know which notes I have to hit in case I'm losing it or I make a mistake, so that I have points where I can get back in. These points are in the PDF. I attached a PDF with the notation and tablature. These notes are signed with a accent, so you can see where so kind of these are my phrases that I add. So the first one would be like this, and the second one starts over again at the high note. That's the hardest part. So, have fun practicing it. I certainly had no fun practicing it at all, but it was a fun challenge, and I'm excited to see what the others come up with. So, take care and have fun.
Nico is such a brilliant guy. Come on. I worked with him. I've done a song with him. Watching him play, watching him work, he's the kind of working musician that just floors you every single time. Whether you work with him, whether he does a song or what, he's an all-round genius guitar player. Thank you for participating in this, Nico, and teaching us your lick. Now, I threw this at Sam Bell. And Sam is a great guitar player, but he's like, damn, I don't even know if I can get that up to speed. And then he comes back with a version where he slides. I'm like, why in the world would he have a slide in there? He Sam Belled it. He bellified it. So let's look at Sam.
Hey guys, Sam Bell here with Henning's Lick. This is very tricky and I've had a lot of fun and a lot of pain trying to get that. It's taken me a few days in between all my scheduling to actually try and get that down. I do initially think that Henning's initial fingering for it is fantastic. It works really well, it makes a lot of sense logically, although I thought I'd try and find my own way of playing it, which allows me to do things that I find more regular for my own technique. And this is something we can all learn from learning lines on our guitar from other instruments which aren't a guitar. So kazoo or saxophone, or in this case, a synth, a MIDI synth. So what we're going to do is just going to talk through some of the elements of the line. So Henning's using lots of string skipping. I'm trying to keep a lot of that going in, but I want to use a bit of hammer-ons and pull-offs just to help me along a bit, and some slides as well. So the initial first bar I've actually placed down here. So I'm following the same kind of, almost a similar fingering to the first part, except on the G, B and E strings. And I'm doing a hammer and pull off there on the B string. Then that A to B flat note, rather than doing it on the same string as Henning had on his initial place, so he had where was it? It was right there. So I'm finding it there as a sort of two-string shape. So, and there I'll hammer on into the first note of the next bar. That's a little bit tricky, that one, but I think that E note actually is part of the reason why this whole thing is difficult. So on the last bar, I'm going like this. Into that final bar, so that allows me to do some slides. So we have the same phrase as before. Then I slide down and up. Okay. That allows me to go, which is kind of similar to the original phrase, and then And then that leads us into the repeat. Now the repeat is the tricky bit. So we're going to slide down from there and do what Henning did initially on the first bar on the repeat. And then I'm going to use a slide down to get down to that position there. So like that. I had a bit of trouble there. I kept on it took me a few takes to get that initial take at the start of this video. So I kept against the B string rather than the E string there. But that's probably more down to my amount of time I've spent practicing this. So that gets me back there, and I finish the whole thing. I go through the rest of the line just as usual. And at the end, we have... I wanted to get a bit of bending and vibrato in there at the end. Part of the reason why I do this sort of thing is because it's good to play all the notes, you know, at the right dynamic and everything the same. It's really cool, but personally for me, part of the reason what I like to hear generally in guitar playing, and it's obviously subjective to the style of music, is hearing those things like bends and vibrato and slides and slurs and even just the naturalness of the guitar. That's kind of what I'm in it for personally. So that's why I've come up with that particular way of playing it. All right, let's see if I can play it one more time.
Yo, that shit's crazy. Not in any way how I would have ever played it or how I could ever play it. But that's the Sam way. And that shows you that there are so many different solutions for the same problem. And he made it sound different too, but it's the same notes. And that's a great thing about the guitar. Try to do that on a piano. And then I throw it at the rock monster player. If you look at Sammy Boller play, it's unbridled rock and roll attitude and sound and screaminess, and he's playing the Friedman amps with the Friedman guitar, and it's all like, wow! But then, how does he tackle something that technical? And it shows you a player on that level, not a problem, but the way he does it is crazy, because he doesn't go into super detail, but I tapped it out for you with picking directions, and he starts on the outside. So he starts with an upstroke, and he doesn't do this. He says he wants to go here. And then he does a slide. The staying on the outside is cool. Having the legato in there is difficult for me. I don't even know. Let's watch frickin' Sammy Boller nail this.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Sammy Boller, and I'm looking at Henning's tab right now, and I kind of just got done learning it. The first thing I noticed about this is it's an odd time, which I don't play an odd time that much, so what I usually do when I have to learn something like this is I'll find the one of every bar, and then I'll kind of target that in my mind when I'm working it out and figuring out the fingerings I'm going to use. So for me, this is also in D minor, so for me I'm like most comfortable 10th fret, like minor pentatonic. So what I did was for every bar, I converted the second half of every bar so it would lay out in the 10th fret instead of using what's on the tab right here, just because it's a little bit easier for me to phrase properly and all that. So let's check it out. So it starts in like the 12th position, right? So there I slide down right after that to the minor pentatonic position. And that feels a lot better than when I was trying to play it like the tab. So the second bar is the same exact thing, just one note's different. And then I took the same approach for the second half of it too. So the picking's a little bit trickier, but it's once you get kind of like the basic feel of it, it kind of just rolls right into that second half. So here's the whole riff.
what a player, what a version. All the tabs, mine and all players that you saw in this episode of this, one crazy lick challenge, are as a download below, the synth line as well, and even the whole solo section without a lead guitar, so you can play around with it if you want to and record your own version. And if you want to send that to me as a video so I can check out of how you play it and your version of it, crazystuff@henningpolly.com. Send it, and maybe one day I will make a video where we're gonna look at your version. There will be more. More players are working on it, and it's going to be super interesting to see what they come up with. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all the players who are working on this. And thanks to Leslie and the animals at the end. None of those animals can even play any of this. They're losers.